Damn. Big Daddies are so cool. Bioshock's a 2007 FPS game developed and published by 2K. So this was my first time playing the original Bioshock, with my intro to the series being Bioshock Infinite. A lot of the stuff that I knew about the game were all out of context, such as Beyond the Sea, Big Daddies, Andrew Ryan quotes, and of course, Rapture. The combination of all these iconic things naturally pulled me in when I started playing the game. To those of you who don't know the plot of Bioshock, you play as a man on a flight that shortly crashes into the ocean, which happens to have a lighthouse that leads to Rapture. His only guide in this decaying underwater city is Atlas, a guy who asks the protagonist for help in order to find his family and escape to the surface. That's if they both manage to survive the splicers, Rapture's citizens who are kind of insane and bloodthirsty. I went into Bioshock completely unspoiled, so I felt just as confused as the protagonist when he got thrown into Rapture. Confused, yet intrigued. Once you dig deeper into the game's world, you'll find one of the most fascinating stories in video games. The biggest twist in the story blew my mind. Like, holy crap, people weren't kidding. After I finished the game, I immediately went online to look at more lore because I couldn't get enough of it. Too bad I needed to hold myself back because I still need to play Bioshock 2 and Burial at Sea. Audio diaries are the main way for you to get more backstory about character motives and some overall world building. It's necessary to listen to them because there's only a handful of cutscenes, and interactions are limited to characters talking to you through your radio, or brief moments where you're just watching them play out in front of you. I mentioned that Bioshock Infinite had a lot of environmental storytelling in my video on it, but I think the original Bioshock has way more. The detail in each level makes everything distinct and memorable. What I loved about the exploration is it's also highly rewarding. So you'll never really have money and supply problems if you loot everything and search around. But of course, that's still dependent on how much ammunition you use for each combat encounter. Shortly after I started playing, I actually disabled the quest markers so I could sink into the game's atmosphere. Rapture is such an interesting place to be in, it almost makes me want to live there. If death wasn't around every corner and everything else wasn't rotting away. I also liked how the enemies weren't just there to wait for you to shoot them down. There were times where I just silently watched and listened to a splicer doing splicer things. Following and observing the Big Daddies with their little sisters also changed how I viewed them. It almost felt a little sad killing the Big Dad. Oh, never mind, it's either you or me, buddy. Well, as for the combat, how you approach the fight all depends on your playstyle. You can sneak around and whack enemies with your wrench, set up traps, or straight up shoot everything. I love how the game gives you a variety of weapons to work with, along with 3 different types of ammunition. Each ammo type, of course, will work better or worse on certain enemies. I was always thankful whenever I was stocked up on different bullet types, when the situation called for them. There were a good number of plasmids too, such as telekinesis and electrobolt. Apart from being a main gameplay mechanic, they're super useful because they can be used to your advantage in certain areas, like electrocuting unsuspecting splicers standing in water. Gene tonics, on the other hand, give passive abilities divided into 3: combat, engineering, and physical. Each type will either increase your offense and defense, hacking skills, and a ton of other things that I can't cover. I was practically drowning in all the different tonics that I got towards the end of the game. But whatever you pick will definitely boil down to your personal playstyle. Scattered across Rapture are vending machines. Lots and lots of vending machines. Depending on the type of machine, you can buy basic things ranging from ammo to first aid kits. Gene banks can also be found, allowing you to change your plasmids and gene tonic loadouts. Finally, The Gatherer's Garden machine will allow you to buy and upgrade both plasmids and tonics using Atom. The only way to obtain that is by making a moral choice of either saving or harvesting little sisters throughout the game. I'd also like to add how these genetic modifying machines are so conveniently available for the public to use in Rapture. It's a little strange, but hey, Rapture's a pretty straightforward city, right? The game itself aged well, despite being over a decade old. But then, I can't say the same thing for the graphics because I only played the remaster. In fact, before I began the game, I wasn't sure which version to start with on PC. Some people complained about compatibility issues in the original. Others say that the 2016 remaster crashes randomly, so I took a leap of faith and chose the remaster. Thankfully, I had zero issues, but I think it's pretty inconvenient for it to be dependent on the system you're using. I've also seen people online say that the remaster looks worse compared to the original in some aspects. I only saw the difference when I watched comparison videos, but personally it's not a big deal for me. I can't count how many times I stopped running around in the game every time Rapture was visible from a window. Yes, I'll never get tired of this place. The only graphical things that took me out of the zone when I was playing were the character models and certain textures that looked rough, though it definitely wasn't a game breaker. One of the only complaints I have about the game is the hacking portions, which have you dragging and dropping pipes that connect from start to finish. I found these quite fun and super useful in the first few hours. I practically hacked every single turret, camera, and vending machine that I could find, so I could get some combat assistance and some cheaper items, of course. But then it started to get in the way of the game's pacing, especially in the later levels where you have a lot of machinery and vending machines to hack. At some point, I just stopped caring. I had far too much money and supplies by then anyway. And speaking about the game's final few hours, spoilers ahead, skip to this timestamp if you don't want to be spoiled. I'll add to the list of people complaining about the final boss fight being way too easy. I had more trouble dealing with the big daddies and other bosses in the game. As you guys might have guessed already, I chose to save all of the little sisters. Yeah, they look creepy, but I didn't have the heart to harvest them for more Atom. Though I admit that I almost believed Atlas when he claimed that Tenenbaum was lying about the girls. Atlas was the biggest betrayal ever. I applaud Fontaine even though his boss fight was really, really bad. I liked the good ending of the game though. It felt satisfying and really sweet even though it was just a brief cutscene. I'm glad I finally played Bioshock. Now I don't feel like I live under a rock anymore. While the models and the animations do show the game's age, there were many times when I actually forgot that I was playing a 2007 game because of how engaging it is. Now would you kindly play Bioshock if you haven't already? Trust me, you're in for a real treat. Let me know what you all thought about the video and follow me anywhere for updates. Specifically Twitter and Instagram. And, wow. That was a wild ride. I actually marathoned most of my playthrough for Bioshock in about 2 nights. And I don't regret any second of it. Anyway, see you guys in my next video.